Hi everyone, Diana Rankin here with your weekly psychic messages and soul messages and perhaps a prediction or two. I'm not sure about this week other than just to say hang in there because the energy is not getting any easier and it's going to continue to get a little bit rougher. But this week I actually want to talk about, I know so many of you are losing loved ones and people are deciding to move into spirit world. A lot of people seem to be leaving. One of my dear friends was the third friend to pass in almost as many months. So this is not an easy time we're going through. So what I thought I would do this week is a couple of things. One, welcome, by the way, everyone. This is the 43rd week of 2019. It is October the 20th to the 26th. And this week we are welcoming fall equinox. So I'm so glad you're ready to celebrate that because we do have to celebrate our lives. And even as we mourn those we've left behind. One of the things I'm going to do is from one of my books, Joy, which is 52 practices to create happiness, one a week. I'm going to give you a quick, easy practice that you can do there. We will get our message, our soul message from Philip, which is an oracle book. And this has a different wisdom on every page. And what I want to do, though, because death is so close to me this week, I did want to read from my book, one of my books, The Found Child. And this is a book, a little boy, a woman after a motorcycle spill finds a little boy at the end of her country lane. And they go on this rather interesting journey and they meet this guide, Philip, imagine that. And he takes them through what happens before life and after we die and before we come back into this life. And they also do some time traveling to heal a soul of a person who had been in the main character's life. So I'm going to read a little bit from that about what happens. Why does it take some of us a long time to die? What if we die quickly? What about those of us left behind, and also in case of a suicide? So I want to read from that. But again, I want to welcome you. I have gotten behind on answering your comments, but I'm so grateful for them. So thank you for the comments. Thank you for keeping them coming. And I will get to answer them. It's just been a really hectic time lately. So let's start with um, let's start with something from Joy and the weekly. This is week 12. It's not our week 12, but I just open this book and say, what's a good message on how to create joy for this week? And I open to week 12. And it's simply, in this moment, you may be experiencing unhappiness. And one of the ways to change that is use visualization, even if it's only for 2 minutes a day, to use visualization. And if you can't visualize, imagine what you could do if you could visualize. And so imagine yourself happy. What does that look like? And for some of you, that's going to be a difficult thing to remember or to think about. But imagine yourself happy. You may just be dancing. You may be jumping up in joy. But however you can imagine yourself happy, do that for 2 minutes a day. What that will do is literally start rewiring the brain, because when we're depressed, it's like we create grooves in our brain, and it's like, water finding that place, water running into where the groove is. And so the same thing happens. Our thoughts go to the easiest groove. And if every thought of depression if every thought is sadness, we keep digging that groove deeper. So start creating new grooves in the brain and start visualizing yourself happy. That will help. It's not the only process. Remember, there are 52 processes in joy, and some will work for some will work better for others. Put as many of those processes and those ways of creating joy in your life. Again, this is going to be really important because we're going through a very difficult transition period. and it's not getting easier. Our friends in Japan just went through a horrific natural disaster. Our friends in California are going through more wildfires, getting close, and some of my friends have had to evacuate, and others were. I talked to a friend last night in California, and he said that it was only 6 miles from their home. So please take care of yourselves, use your intuition, and create as much happiness in your life and in the world as you can. Celebrate the fall coming. You know, as we move into the fall, it's my favorite time of the year because my birthday's in a couple of weeks. It's November the 11th. So fall, I love the colors. I love what comes to us in the fall. And as we move into the fall, we really have that opportunity to think about that inner journey, that journey that is going inward, that allows us to add joy to our inner world, but also to the world, the larger world out there. So I know many of you have lost loved ones recently, and certainly I can identify with that. And so what I wanted to do today is to read from this book, The Found Child, rather than just answer a specific question. And when I reread this book, I look at it and I say, who wrote this? And I know Philip, my main guide, had a big hand in it. And so we're going to hear from Philip via The Found Child today. So this is, I'm just kind of starting in the middle of a chapter, and certainly in the middle of the book. But this is where we're, hopefully it will make sense. Philip is speaking, and he says, "When a human dies," he began, and I felt a shiver run up my spine. There are different ways of making the transition into spirit world. A soul may make an easy and quick transition. This occurs when the human is ready to let go of life and be welcomed into this new passage. People who are highly developed spiritually experience this transition. People, regardless of age, who have had long illnesses and have had time to prepare may be, but are not necessarily, in this category. The same is true for people who have lived a long and productive life and are ready for their next experience. Oh, I thought of my beloved grandmother who took years of illness to prepare. From my perspective, it was horrible to see someone so vibrant, ragged, with poor health. Philip, are you saying that we stay alive because we are preparing for death? Yes, my dear, he said patiently. However, that is not the full story. As a human, you are given different times within a lifetime that you may transition. People near the end of a long life, or those who go through a prolonged illness, may come to realize all that they have yet to complete, all those things they have chosen to do when they agreed to come into body. They may choose to stay a while to give them time to sort everything out. Or a person may be so full of fear of death that they cling to life. A prolonged illness before transitioning allows the human to work with guides, angels, teachers, and the whole of their team will aid with the transition from human life to spirit life. This time in illness allows the human to become familiar with the new energy, which alleviates any fear of the passage. Often during the illness, the soul prepares itself to communicate with humans still in this plane. So when the passage is complete, the communication begins to take place almost immediately. Can everyone communicate with people who pass over? Philip responds, certainly, but not everyone does. There are those, such as yourself, who are naturally sensitive to the energy of different planes. For people less sensitive to the energy, all it takes is love, desire, and release. Release? Yes, release of the person they love. Often humans hold loved ones to this plane through emotion. Do you mean we hold someone we love here through our grief? That is possible. But also anger and fear are strong holds. Unnatural grief that wanes with time is healthy and allows for the healing of the grieving person without causing harm to the one who has transitioned. It is unhealthy grief that holds a soul to the earth plane. How do we know the difference? Ah, my dear, that's simple. If a grieving person can still add laughter to the world, if a grieving person can still find joy in their life, even while missing the person who has left, then grief does not hold the soul behind. If, however, the grief is mixed with unfinished business, or the ones left behind cannot grow in their own lives, then the grief holds both of them hostage in this plane. What happens to the person who died? Do they not make their transition? Oh, eventually they do. It just makes it harder for them and takes longer. Philip smiled and added, but of course, as you know, there is no time in spirit world, so it does not matter how much time it takes. Are these people what we call ghosts? Philip looked at me seriously. Some are not, he said. There are other reasons someone does not make an immediate transition. A ghost, as you call these souls, is someone who just has not yet made a successful transition, either because they do not yet recognize they are no longer in body, which can happen with a quick and unexpected ending to this life, or because another holds them here. We hold them here because we are afraid if we let them go, they'll be gone from us forever. Yes, but you know that is not true. I understood what he meant, although I was surprised at my own understanding of this concept. Yes, I nodded. It's easier to communicate with people after they have made a transition. It's like we can see their spirit, not their human self, and yet they can tell us things about their human life. You have stated it quite well. To communicate with a human who has not fully made the transition, a ghost if you will, is communicating with the human energy. Once the transition is complete, that human energy is transmuted into spirit form. The spirit form can remember all life experiences and communicate with those of you still in human body, while they also continue their journey in spirit form. I think I'm getting it, I said. It's really also complicated. Philip rocked back on his heels. His white robe fluttered as he did so. He folded his hands into themselves and took a second or two before continuing. There are many levels of existence we will not touch on, he said. It is much more complicated than you can imagine, or perhaps that even I can imagine. Existence is infinite. I can't comprehend infinite. He merely smiled at me as though indulging a child. Well, there are things you can comprehend. Shall we continue? He looked directly at me, and I felt a subtle wave pass through me like the rising of the morning sun, and I knew I had been given a new level of understanding that may take years in my human self to unfold. As I have stated, Philip continued, people may take a long time through illness before deciding to transition. Yes, and you said that helps them prepare for their transition into spirit world. Indeed, I did. But there is another reason people may develop a long-term illness. Doing so allows those around them to come to terms with the impending death. That's a sacrifice some are willing and able to make for their loved ones. I thought about what Philip was saying, thought about the people I knew who had needed to give those near them time to adjust to the changes that are inevitable with the death of someone close to you? Some animals do that, I thought aloud. Of course, Philip said. He paused for a few moments, giving me time to absorb my own thoughts before he continued. Another way to transition is when a life ends abruptly. As I said earlier, often people in this category make a quick and easy transition, but there are others who do not immediately realize they no longer have use of their physical bodies. For these people, the transition may take longer and be a bit more difficult. Jeremy's in this category, Davy spoke up. Yes, he is, Philip agreed. Let me continue now. He looked at Davy, who was not at all fazed by Philip's gentle reminder. Those couple of sentences there about Jeremy has to do with the whole book. So let's continue with what Philip teaches us about death and dying. These souls are still held to the earth plane because they may be unaware they no longer have use of their bodies, or because they left so quickly they have unfinished business that continues to hold them. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm going to take a quick drink of water and come right back. I apologize for that. Okay, here we go. The purpose of rituals such as prayer is to help these souls move into the next dimension of their existence. We've lost those elaborate rituals in our culture. Rituals like the ancient Egyptians had, I said. Current cultures on Earth still follow many of the ancient rituals. This is true of some of the Tibetans, Hindus, even some of your Native American nations within the country of your birth. In some cultures, it is necessary for the dying person to have others around and to stay with the body for some time after the body dies to give the soul time to adjust. For other cultures, the dying person goes alone into nature after saying goodbye. The community is part of the person's transition through ritual, chanting, prayer, and such. What happens if the person is alone? Are you wondering about your mother? Oh, I nodded. Philip brushed his arm across my vision, and I saw the accident that had taken my mother's life. She rose above the car, as did two friends of hers. Their bodies stayed strapped in the car. Then I saw their angels and guides come to greet them. I saw my grandparents and other relatives I had only known through family stories. They greeted Mother and she them with warmth and joy. She had no fear. She didn't even look back. Gracefully she went with them as a child goes with a trusted parent. I had to shield my eyes against the brightness of the light. They all became, and then they were gone. I felt none of the grief I had when Mother died. Here I felt the rightness and beauty of the life and death cycle. Here in this space I felt the joy of her ecstasy. Angels and spirit folk surrounded Mother's husband, who sat slumped behind the wheel of the car. I felt his fear like a black pitchfork, each time twisting deeper into my heart. He doesn't see them, I said. He doesn't see his angels. Not yet, Philip said. Will he see them when it comes time for his transition? I asked Philip, but before giving him time to answer, I doubled over into myself as I felt the horror dark truth brings. You know, Philip, you know, don't you? Yes, Philip said gently. My stomach tightened, gutting itself against what I might hear. Still, I had to ask. What happened to him? What happens to people who do what he did? You mean people who take their own life? Philip cast his eyes down and waited for a second or two before answering. When he did speak, his voice was serious, lowered. He spoke in a monotone. Let there be no mistake, he said. The human has free will and can make the choice to end the human existence at any time. However, doing so keeps the energy trapped in the place of suffering. It takes the goodwill and prayers of others to help release the person from that suffering. Too often they come back into another human body and repeat the same pattern. Of course, their guides and angels are always helping them. So eventually they will be able to move on. I'm going to stop there and just remind you that we have free will, that whatever we choose in our life, we are choosing. And we can choose from our human self, or we can choose from our soul self. We have reason to stay on this plane, and we have reason to leave. It's our choice. We have reason to deal with those we love in spirit world through how we feel. Let's choose to deal with those in spirit world we love through love. Love for ourselves and love for them. Shall we flip through and get our message? Thinking right page or left page. And I remind you that as you think, I always read both pages, but our message is on either the left page or right page. And I try to make that clear. But if I choose left and you choose right, listen to the right page as well, because that's a personal message for you perhaps. So let's just think left page or right page. And as we flip through, there we've got a page and I'm hearing left. So that's our message. And it always amazes me how it fits. Your understanding of the answer is greater as you grow. Your understanding of the answer is greater as you grow. And on the right page, it says, courage is not yours unless you first faced fear. Courage is not yours unless you first faced fear. Thank you for being with me today, my friends. Hold on to each other. Love the moments you have together, because life is precious. And hard at times, yes, very. But it's also so precious. So love it, love yourselves, and love those who are in your life. Until we meet again, thank you for being here.